Our next interview is Raya Dukhan, who is telling me she's got a lot of stories to tell. And Raya, we have. I think it's so interesting. You among all the people here with day jobs, you have probably the most technical one. You are a UI UX designer. You do websites, branding, applications. You work for a small boutique operation called IBM. And I saw you the other day at the art fair on Fifth Avenue, which is definitely not IBM. I'd love to hear about that, your BFA, your residencies, and see all your pictures. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I will tell them all through my chronological retrospective approach of telling the story.
Okay.
That you're helping me with. Okay, so this first picture is my home gallery. And I've been home gallery, home studio for about 15 years now. And the next photo is really where I work. Yep, so this is where I'm standing right now.
Is this the same room though?
This is the same room. Yeah, it's
Okay.
a really big room. Yeah, so half of it is the loungy couch area with art on the walls, and the other half I work in. And I'm standing at the standing desk right now.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, okay. We begin the story in 94. Post art school, went to Columbia College in Chicago. At this point in my life, I've been working typical art jobs like picture framing and consulting. And I got an opportunity to live in Port Townsend, Washington, which is a small artist town in the Olympic Peninsula. And I grabbed it. So I spent about a year or so living there and creating and showing art. And this piece is from my time there. I believe this is the first time I incorporated found objects into my work. I also used to collect old window frames, which I turned into picture frames. And this piece has wood, copper, canvas, all collaged, and it's painted with oil, which was my primary medium. In college and post-college for several years. And it's about 25 by 35 inches. Okay, so moving on. Now we're in 2002. At this point, I spent about 8 years living in Washington, mostly in Seattle, working at .coms as a web designer, while keeping art making on the side. The .com bubble burst, and I found myself at a crossroads in my life. So I decided to pack up my Seattle life, travel around the world, and when I felt done, moved to New York City, which would be for the second time in my life, as my family immigrated here from Russia in 1979 before moving to Chicago. So I got a one-way ticket to Budapest and spent the next 6 months going east, mostly by land, and eventually getting to Singapore when I got another one-way ticket back to begin my New York life. And when I returned, I did a whole series of these aerial paintings, as like this one, as I love looking out the window from the plane and seeing the world from that perspective. This one is called Puget Sound. It has a bunch of mixed media, working with all kinds of mediums, and it's an ode to my time in the Pacific Northwest, and it's 30 by 40 inches wide, high, 30 wide, 40 high. Okay, so now we're in 2007. At this point, I've been living in New York City since 2003. And then I get an opportunity to do a 3-month artist residency in Rosario, Argentina. And you know how some years you barely remember anything and nothing much happens? Well, 2007 was not one of them. It's not only just started the Great Recession and the financial crisis, but personally, that was the year that everything happened, from losing my best friend to cancer, to attending and being part of art crews at big festivals like Burning Man and Coachella, to quitting a job I hated and packing up for a 6-month stint in South America, which started with this artist residency, where this piece was created. I was there during their presidential election, and one night, well, because we could, my residency friends and I ripped election posters from the walls, and some of them ended up in this piece here.
Wow.
And it's on canvas, yeah, and some spray paint. It's called Christina, after the elected president there, and it's about 30 by 50. So this next piece is was part of an installation I did for a show in 2010 at a former flower shop turned gallery in Prospect Heights. I was into reusing materials I found in the street, started collecting milk and water jugs, which I then manipulated with my blowtorch and spray painted naturally.
Wow.
Yeah, this series is called Feral Flowers. I ended up doing several different installations with them around Brooklyn.
And fabulous reuse of materials there.
They're still in my they're still here in my living room, some of them. They've lasted.
It looks like there's a man on the right, or woman, with their arm on the shoulder of the person in front of them in the center.
Okay.
But that's not deliberate, I take it.
No, they're kind of modular, and I played around with positioning them and depending on where I was setting them up. So they kind of morphed as I was, working in a specific space. I put some of them in flower pots and big on my roof. I had these big pots. I even did a little installation on my roof with them. It was really fun. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, next. Okay, so the rest of the images I want to share are from the past few years. Life-wise, more heads down, working in the studio in addition to my tech job. Still doing globetrotting, but in shorter bursts, keeping it mostly for winter escapes. And I started working in themes. I created this one about 3 years ago, and it represents serenity, chaos, and also nature. I started using more household materials in my work. Here you could see texture building in the rocks. And I build up the canvas with a joint compound, which is one of my favorite mediums. Yep, much cheaper than, the Liquitex stuff. And actually way more durable. So I'm a fan. Also glue and layers of acrylic paint. This one's called Up because that was my angle of exploring the water and rocks. And this is from Costa Rica. Yeah, about 3 years ago, and it's 30 by 30. Okay, this next one, I started exploring the theme of self-journey and opening into other dimensions and viewports. This one was created in several stages. In fact, this canvas started out as an aerial painting several years ago. As you can imagine, living with your art, you tend to constantly criticize and rework your creations. And it happens to me all the time. It happened here, it'll happen again. So lots of layers later, being more connected to inner work, this piece revealed itself to me. And it was probably finished in 2019. It's called Ardent, and it's 30 by 40.
Now you say it revealed itself to you. Can you speak a little bit more about what that means, how it works?
Sure. Well, that tends to be my process. I will start working on something, and it's working through it is when the subject reveals itself. And like I said, this started out in several different iterations of something else, and it just wasn't working. And then finally, I decided, yes, this is it. So the subject revealed itself.
Oh,
if that makes any sense.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we're in 2020. This is one of the first pieces, my first pandemic pieces. The theme here is superhuman, calm, lonely, dreaming. And like I said earlier, I don't usually start, well, I didn't actually say it, but I meant it. I don't usually start a piece with something in mind, rather the canvas will evolve. And this was the case in this particular piece. I sketched something out because I wanted to try something new. But as I kept working on the original idea wasn't coming through. So I improvised with what I had. And the unconscious and intuition plays a really big role in this process. So again, just kind of working through until the subject reveals itself. So that's, again, the case here.
Two
Um,
questions on this one. It's the
Sure.
first one with a figure, a human figure. And
I do have a
that's
lot
big
of
departure
figures.
for you, no?
I'm sorry?
That's a big departure for you, is it not?
Actually, it's not. I'm showing a pretty big range. I did study figure drawing and I did a lot of portrait stuff. So I do a lot of figures. It's just,
Okay.
you just haven't seen any.
The other is I have this image of you working in the wee hours of the night and just going on and really getting into it and then going, aha.
Kind of, but mostly in the morning. I like sometimes I like 2020, I was like going to bed at 9 and getting up at 4. I don't know what was going on, but I love sunrise. That's my favorite time of day. So I was working early in the morning and then of course doing my day job, which I also do at home and I have. So yeah, a lot going on. I was not bored in 2020, but
No,
so this one I just this is also small rocks and gravel from the park. So I gathered a lot of materials.
this is all rocks and gravel?
There's a lot of rocks and gravel here. Also sand, joint compound, my friend,
Yeah.
and more acrylic paint.
Huh.
It's called Fantasist. And I just hung it at the Roots Cafe where I have a show this month.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's 24 by 36, in case anyone wondering. So this is another one from 2020. Also, this came from a huge craving I had for nature and being stuck inside during this pandemic. Theme is nature, flora, fauna, serenity, chaos, and also self-journey. I found and recycled this canvas, which I decided to experiment with using plaster for the first time and join compound together. So this is the basis for this particular piece. It's called Jinmenju and it's 29 by 47 tall. Okay, so now we're in 2021. I started a new series while on my winter-long road trip down south. Again, working more in themes and going back to working in collage after 20 years or so. And this theme reflects my deep love for music. I repurposed monotype collagraphs that I created a few years ago and then collaged papers and old artwork in burlap. And also the original collograph also has burlap in there as well. So it's kind of like a double burlap piece. And this one just came down from our group Spring Salon at Osam. It's part of the Harmony series. It's the first one. It's 20 by 20.
Nice.
And the last one on this in this collection is also part of this past winter. I was having lunch with my parents on the beach at Anna Maria Island in Florida, and these boat pieces just started drifting to the beach, and I had to start collecting them immediately. And as many as I could fit into my minivan, I was traveling with them for the rest of the time I was down there. So I started painting on them while I was on this trip. And just a few weeks ago, or when I got back, I decided to take them up on my roof and use spray paint and then some collage. And it's also hanging at Roots Cafe. It's 5 separate pieces, but I hung them together. Slightly different configuration than this because I did this configuration in Photoshop. But
so this was 5 photos that you put together into one.
Yeah, yep. But I meant to hang them together. Like if you go to Roots, they're together. They're just not quite this way.
We will allow that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, so
well, that's the way it goes with so much of your art. I think you don't know what's going to happen, which is wonderful.
I don't know.
I think on that note we'll end. Raya, I want to thank you. It was a wonderful interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you.